Let's begin with a question that almost everyone in this room has felt, but rarely speaks out loud. Why is it that sometimes the very people we helped, supported, defended, or even rescued are the ones who hurt us the most? Why does betrayal so often come not from strangers but from those we lifted up? This experience feels deeply personal, almost cruel, as if kindness itself has been punished. But today, I want to gently shift your perspective. This is not just a moral issue. It is not simply about good and bad people. It is a psychological phenomenon rooted in human ego, shame, power dynamics, dependency, and identity. When you help someone, especially in a significant way, you create an invisible psychological contract. You may not say it out loud, but internally, you assume loyalty, gratitude, or at the very least, respect. On the other side, the person receiving help experiences something far more complicated than gratitude. Along with appreciation, there is often a subtle sense of indebtedness, and indebtedness is psychologically uncomfortable. Human beings are wired for autonomy and dignity. When someone feels that their survival, success, or stability is tied to another person's support, their self-image can feel threatened. That discomfort can quietly grow into resentment. This dynamic is rooted in what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. If someone sees themselves as capable and independent, but their reality shows they needed rescuing, their mind must resolve the conflict. One way to resolve it is gratitude and growth. But another darker way is to diminish the helper. If they convince themselves that you are manipulative, controlling, arrogant, or overstepping, then they no longer feel inferior. Betrayal, in some cases, is not about harming you. It is about restoring their own sense of power. Over time, this pattern develops through childhood experiences. If someone grew up in an environment where help was conditional, where love was used as leverage, or where vulnerability led to shame, they may associate receiving help with humiliation. When you assist them, even with pure intentions, it activates old emotional memories. Their body remembers dependency as danger. Their nervous system tightens. They may smile and thank you outwardly, but internally they feel exposed. That exposure can eventually turn into defensive aggression. Watch behavior closely. When someone you helped starts subtly downplaying your contribution, that is not random. When they say things like, "I would have figured it out anyway," or "It wasn't that big of a deal," they are psychologically reclaiming power. Their tone may shift from warmth to distance. Eye contact might reduce. They may avoid mentioning your support in front of others. These are not small social quirks. These are signs of internal discomfort. The body language of someone who feels indebted often includes crossed arms, forced smiles, quick subject changes when help is discussed, and exaggerated independence in unrelated areas. If a person openly expresses gratitude, includes you in their growth story, and maintains consistent respect, it typically indicates secure self-esteem. They can integrate help into their identity without feeling diminished. But when someone avoids acknowledging help entirely, that often signals fragile pride. The absence of gratitude is not always ingratitude. Sometimes it is psychological defense. Another powerful factor is power imbalance. Help changes hierarchy. The helper temporarily occupies a higher position. Even if you never intended to dominate, the dynamic shifts. Humans are extremely sensitive to status. Research in social psychology consistently shows that perceived inequality triggers stress responses. If someone feels you are now above them, they may unconsciously attempt to restore equality by criticizing you, distancing from you, or aligning with others against you. Betrayal can become a tool to equalize power. Let's talk about envy. Envy is one of the most misunderstood emotions. It is not always about wanting what someone else has. Sometimes it is about hating the reminder of what you lacked. When you help someone succeed, your competence becomes visible. If they were already insecure, your strength becomes a mirror. And mirrors can hurt. Instead of being inspired, they may feel exposed. So they psychologically flip the narrative. They start highlighting your flaws. They question your motives. They reinterpret your generosity as manipulation. This protects their ego. You might notice subtle behavioral shifts before overt betrayal happens. They become less responsive. Their enthusiasm around you decreases. Compliments turn into backhanded remarks. They may start forming alliances with people who dislike you. These behaviors reveal internal comparison and threatened identity. If someone does not show these signs and instead grows closer, it often means they possess emotional maturity and secure attachment patterns. There is also the phenomenon of guilt avoidance. When someone cannot repay you, especially if your help was significant, they may feel chronic guilt. Guilt, when unresolved, transforms into avoidance. Avoidance, over time, becomes emotional coldness, and coldness can evolve into hostility. Betrayal sometimes emerges as a dramatic way to end the discomfort. If they damage the relationship, they no longer have to carry the burden of repayment. In daily life, this plays out in business partnerships, friendships, family systems, and romantic relationships. A friend you financially supported might later spread rumors. An employee you mentored might undermine you publicly. A relative you defended might side against you in conflict. These actions are rarely spontaneous. They are usually the final stage of internal psychological tension that has been building for months or years. Pay attention to micro-expressions, tightened lips when your name is praised, a pause before acknowledging your role, sudden defensiveness when you offer advice again. These reveal unresolved internal conflict. Conversely, if someone confidently says, "I couldn't have done it without you," and continues investing in the relationship, it signals psychological security. Another layer is identity transformation. Sometimes when people rise after your help, they want to distance themselves from the version of themselves that needed saving. And you represent that old version. Your presence reminds them of their vulnerable past. Betraying you symbolically kills the memory of their weakness. It is not logical, but psychologically it can feel like rebirth. Now let us explore the emotional consequences for the helper. Betrayal after generosity creates a specific type of trauma. It attacks your belief in fairness. It can trigger hypervigilance. You may begin scanning for signs of disloyalty everywhere. Trust becomes conditional. You might unconsciously withdraw warmth from new relationships. This is the mind's attempt to prevent repetition. Repeated experiences of this dynamic can create what psychologists call learned guardedness. You start helping less. Or you help but with emotional distance. You become calculating. Your nervous system associates generosity with danger. Over time, this can impact your self-esteem. You may question your judgment. You might replay conversations, wondering where you went wrong. Productivity can decline because mental energy is consumed by rumination. Some people develop cynicism as a defense. They say, "Never help anyone," or "people are ungrateful." While this protects from immediate pain, it narrows emotional richness. Chronic cynicism correlates with increased stress hormones and reduced relational satisfaction. Others swing in the opposite direction and overhelp, trying to prove their worth or prevent abandonment. This can lead to burnout and resentment. From a clinical perspective, psychologists analyze this pattern by observing relational dynamics over time. We examine attachment styles. Individuals with anxious attachment may help excessively to secure connection. Those with avoidant attachment may resent dependency. We explore early family narratives about power, worth, and obligation. We watch how individuals respond to praise and indebtedness. Do they deflect? Do they minimize? Do they reciprocate? We also analyze language patterns. Someone preparing to betray often shifts from inclusive language like "we" to distancing language, like "I." They may rewrite history subtly. Memory distortion is a powerful defense mechanism. By reconstructing events to minimize your role, they protect their ego. Tone analysis, consistency of behavior, and reaction to boundary setting all provide clues. Emotional triggers are critical. If your success is mentioned and they immediately change subject, it signals comparison discomfort. If they overreact to minor disagreements after receiving help, it may indicate suppressed resentment finally surfacing. Subconscious signs include increased sarcasm, competitive posturing, or sudden moral criticism directed at you. But here is a crucial truth. Not everyone you help will betray you. The phrase always is emotionally powerful, but psychologically inaccurate. What increases the likelihood of betrayal is a combination of fragile self-esteem, unresolved shame, power imbalance, and lack of emotional maturity. When secure individuals receive help, they integrate it without identity collapse. They reciprocate when possible and maintain loyalty. So what does it mean psychologically when someone betrays after being helped? It often reveals inner conflict, pride vulnerability, shame intolerance, or power sensitivity. It suggests difficulty tolerating dependency. It may reflect past experiences where help was weaponized. And sometimes, it simply reveals opportunism masked as connection. What does it mean when someone does not betray, when they remain loyal and grateful? It reveals resilience, secure attachment, stable identity, and the ability to separate temporary need from permanent self-worth. They see help as collaboration, not humiliation. As you leave today, I want you to reflect on two things. First, help from a place of strength, not from a need to control outcomes. When help is offered freely without expectation, betrayal hurts, less because your identity was not attached to repayment. Second, observe people's relationship with pride before you invest deeply. Watch how they respond to small assistance. That predicts how they will handle larger support. Human behavior is rarely black and white. Betrayal after help is not just cruelty. It is often a complex defense against shame, guilt, and powerlessness. Understanding this does not excuse harmful behavior, but it protects your peace. When you see the psychology behind the action, you stop personalizing every wound. Generosity is not weakness, but generosity without boundaries invites imbalance. Help wisely, help consciously. And remember that when someone betrays you after you lifted them, it says more about their internal battle than about your value. Your kindness remains strength. Their betrayal is often a mirror reflecting their unresolved war within themselves.